Amina carefully adjusted her wig in the bright sunlight that streamed through her window. It was long, smooth and shiny, a wig she had spent months saving for. Every strand looked perfect, and when she ran her fingers through it, she felt proud. She had always loved dressing up, but this wig was special. It was not just hair, it was a symbol of her confidence and style. It made her feel bold, like she could take on the world. She looked at her reflection in the mirror and smiled. The wig framed her face perfectly, and she knew that anyone who saw her would admire it. Even though she loved showing off her style, Amina was careful. She remembered her grandmother's words from when she was a little girl. Her grandmother had always told her, "Not everyone deserves your treasure." At the time, Amina had only partly understood, but now, as she held her prized wig, the words made perfect sense. Some people would admire something just because it was beautiful. Others might want it for the wrong reasons. Amina had seen it happen before. Friends who seemed kind would sometimes take what was valuable without thinking. She did not want that to happen to her. Amina decided to take the wig outside. She wanted to show it at the market, where she was selling some handmade jewelry she had made herself. Lagos was busy that morning. The streets were crowded with people moving quickly in all directions. Cars honked, street vendors shouted, and the smell of fried plantains and fresh bread filled the air. Amina held her head high, walking carefully to keep the wig in place. People turned to look at her. Some smiled, some whispered, and a few even tried to compliment her. "Your hair looks amazing," said one woman passing by. Amina smiled politely but kept walking. She enjoyed the compliments, but she did not want to let anyone touch the wig. At the market, she found her usual spot under the shade of a large tree. She laid out her jewelry neatly, hoping to sell some pieces. Her hands moved quickly, arranging bracelets and necklaces while keeping an eye on her reflection in a small hand mirror. Even though she was focused on her work, she noticed that people kept glancing at her wig. Some tried to get closer, asking where she got it. Amina answered politely, but she did not offer any personal details. The wig was hers, and she had to protect it. While arranging her items, a little boy ran past, nearly knocking over a basket of bracelets. Amina laughed softly and helped him pick up the items. Children often came to the market with their parents, and she liked how innocent they were. They did not understand the value of the wig yet. But some adults did. Amina noticed a woman standing nearby, looking at her closely. The woman's eyes lingered on the wig, and Amina felt a small warning in her stomach. She had learned to trust her instincts. Something about the woman's stare made her tighten her grip on the mirror and adjust her hair. As the morning passed, Amina continued to sell her jewelry and enjoy the market's lively energy. She saw familiar faces, friends, neighbors, and other sellers she had known for years. They all liked her wig, but they also respected her. They knew it was special to her. Every now and then, someone would compliment her again. "That hair is beautiful," one man said. Amina thanked him, smiling politely. She liked compliments, but she did not want to let anyone cross the line. Her grandmother's warning echoed in her mind, "Not everyone deserves your treasure." By midday, the sun was high, and the heat made the market feel even busier. Amina wiped her forehead and looked around. People were moving quickly, trying to buy fruits, clothes, and other goods. The market was full of life, full of noise, full of smells. It made her happy to be part of it. Selling jewelry was not easy, but she loved seeing people admire her work. And she loved the feeling of knowing that her wig was hers alone, untouched by anyone who might not care for it the way she did. Amina thought about the wig again. It was more than just hair. It represented her hard work, her sense of style, and her pride. She had saved money carefully, choosing the right quality and color. The wig had taken time to find and even more time to maintain. Every morning, she brushed it, washed it gently, and made sure it looked perfect. It was her crown, in a way. She realized that taking care of something so special required patience and wisdom. While she packed some bracelets into a small bag, she noticed a few people whispering and pointing. Some seemed curious, others seemed jealous. Amina felt a mix of pride and caution. She had always known that beauty could attract attention. But she also knew that attention could be dangerous. She had heard stories of people losing their possessions to those who seemed friendly but were not trustworthy. Her grandmother's words returned again, Not everyone deserves your treasure. As the day went on, Amina sold several pieces of jewelry and received smiles and compliments from strangers. She felt happy and accomplished. But she also remained careful. She noticed every glance, every approach, and every question about her wig. She answered politely but never let anyone touch it. Her wig stayed perfectly in place, shiny and smooth, reflecting the sunlight like a crown on her head. She felt proud, not just because it looked good, but because she had protected it. By the time the market started to quiet down in the late afternoon, Amina felt a sense of relief. The busy day had passed without incident. She packed her jewelry carefully and adjusted her wig one last time before leaving. Walking home through the lively streets, she felt proud of her choices. She had shown her beauty and her style, but she had not given away her treasure to just anyone. She had respected her grandmother's advice, and it made her feel wise. Even as she reached her small apartment, Amina thought about the day. She thought about her wig, about the market, and about the people she had seen. She knew that she had done the right thing. Some things were too precious to share lightly. Some treasures needed to be protected, not because of selfishness, but because of care and respect. And Amina understood that she had the power to decide who could see her treasures and who could not. That evening, Amina sat by her window, brushing her wig slowly and carefully. The sunlight had faded, but the wig still shone under the soft glow of the room. She felt proud of herself, not just for her beauty, but for her wisdom. She knew that tomorrow, the market would be busy again, and people would admire her wig once more. But she also knew that she would remain cautious, protecting what was hers. Her grandmother's words stayed with her, clear and strong, "Not everyone deserves your treasure." And Amina knew she would never forget them. Amina was arranging her bracelets when a woman approached her stall. The woman's smile was warm, and her eyes sparkled with curiosity. She introduced herself as Saad. "Your hair. I have never seen anything so beautiful," Saad said, pointing at Amina's wig. Her voice was friendly, almost musical, and Amina felt a small rush of pride. She was used to compliments, but Saada's words seemed especially genuine. Saad stepped closer, looking at the wig carefully. "It looks so soft and shiny. Did you make it yourself?" she asked. Amina shook her head politely. "No, I bought it. But I take very good care of it." She smiled, hoping to keep the conversation friendly but not too personal. She had learned over the years that showing too much about her possessions could be risky. Saada's eyes widened with admiration. "It's amazing. I have a party tonight, and I would love to wear a wig like this. Could I borrow it for just a few hours?" Amina froze. She did not expect such a request. The wig was her pride, her special treasure. She had promised herself she would never let anyone else touch it carelessly. Yet, Saad seemed kind, and her words were convincing. Amina hesitated. Amina looked around the market, noticing the bright sunlight reflecting off her wig. It made her feel proud, but also a little nervous. She had heard stories of people lending their prized possessions and never getting them back in the same condition. She wanted to trust Saad, but a small voice inside her warned caution. Still, Saada's expression was so sincere that Amina felt a tug of sympathy. Saad continued, unaware of Amina's hesitation. "I promise I will return it safely," she said, leaning closer slightly. "I have a very important event tonight. Everyone will be looking at me, and this wig, it will make me feel confident. Please, Amina, just for a little while." Her voice was soft and convincing, almost like a gentle plea. Amina's mind raced. She thought about all the ways this could go wrong. What if Saad damaged the wig? What if she lost it or cared less about it than Amina did? But then she thought about the warmth in Saada's smile, the way she seemed genuinely excited. Maybe this was harmless. Maybe it would be okay. The market was busy around them, with people moving quickly, shouting and laughing. Vendors sold fruits, clothes, and trinkets, and the air smelled of roasted corn and spices. Amina could feel the energy all around her. The crowd made the decision harder. If someone else noticed her wig being borrowed, they might envy it, or worse, try to ask for it too. But it seemed impossible to say no to Saad so directly. Amina tried to buy time. I don't usually lend my wig," she said slowly, her fingers brushing over the shiny strands. It's very special to me." She looked at Sada's hopeful face. The woman's smile did not falter. "I understand," Sad replied gently. "But I promise, I will return it just as it is. I will be careful. Please, Amina." Amina could feel the pressure building inside her. On one hand, she wanted to protect her treasure. On the other, she did not want to seem rude or unkind. Sada's charm was persuasive, almost like a gentle tide pulling at Amina's sense of generosity. She thought about the market, the people watching, and the words her grandmother had told her. "Not everyone deserves your treasure," the words echoed in her mind. But the words seemed distant for a moment, replaced by the soft voice of Saad asking so politely. As Amina considered the decision, Saad began complimenting her again, noting how natural the wig looked, how elegant it made her face, how perfect it would be for any celebration. Each word seemed carefully chosen to charm and convince. Amina felt a small tug of excitement. Maybe lending it would be harmless. Maybe Saad really would take care of it. She wanted to believe in that. Amina's hands trembled slightly as she reached for the wig. She brushed it softly, feeling the silky strand slip between her fingers. The sunlight made it glow, and she felt proud all over again. Saad watched with admiration, her eyes wide, her smile bright. Amina could almost imagine how the wig would look on her, how beautiful it would make her feel. But deep down, Amina felt a flutter of worry. She had been cautious all her life with her prized possessions. She had worked hard, saved money, and cared for her things. Lending this wig was risky. She knew that. She also knew that if something happened to it, it would not just be a wig, it would be a loss of pride, a betrayal of her own trust. Saad reached out, but gently, respecting Amina's hesitation. "Please," she said softly. "Just for a little while. I will bring it back, I promise." Her voice was persuasive, almost hypnotic in its kindness. Amina felt torn. She wanted to say no, to protect her treasure. Yet, she could not ignore the warmth in Sada's smile. She felt a strange sense of connection with her, even though they had just met. Amina took a deep breath. She held the wig carefully, turning it slowly in her hands. She felt the smooth texture, the weight of it, and the shine that reflected the sunlight. It was beautiful, too beautiful to risk, yet the idea of helping Saad made her hesitate. She remembered all the times she had been kind to others and how it had made her feel happy inside. Maybe this was another chance to be generous. Saad leaned slightly closer. "I would be very careful. I promise." "You can trust me," she said, her voice calm and friendly. Amina looked into her eyes and saw sincerity. At least, that was what she thought. The market around them buzzed with life. People laughed, shouted, and moved past, but for a moment, Amina felt alone with Saad. It felt like a small bubble of possibility, a chance to do something nice. Amina's heart raced as she made her decision. She had always been careful, always cautious, but she also wanted to be kind. She finally nodded, just slightly, and said, "All right, just for a little while. But you must promise to be careful." Sada's face lit up with joy. "Thank you. I promise. I won't damage it, I swear." Amina handed the wig over slowly, feeling a strange mix of excitement and worry. She watched Saad carefully as she adjusted it on her head. The wig fit perfectly, shining under the sunlight, and for a moment, Amina felt proud of herself for sharing. She also felt a small flutter of fear in her stomach. She had made a choice that could change everything, and there was no turning back. As Saad thanked her again and walked away, Amina stood at her stall, watching her go. She reminded herself to be careful, to watch closely, and to trust her instincts. She felt a mixture of pride and anxiety. She had been generous, but she knew that giving something so valuable to another person was always risky. Still, she hoped Saad would keep her promise. Saad walked through the busy streets of Lagos with Amina's wig perfectly in place. The sun shone on the long, silky strands, making them glimmer in every direction. Saad felt confident, almost unstoppable, as people stopped and stared. She smiled widely, enjoying the attention. She had never worn anything like this before, and it made her feel like the center of the world. At first, it seemed harmless. People complimented her, admired the wig, and asked where she had gotten it. Saad told them she had borrowed it from a friend, but she did not mention Amina's name. She wanted to enjoy the attention without giving credit. The wig made her feel important, and she began to walk taller, laugh louder, and show off more than she usually would. Meanwhile, Amina waited at home, her heart uneasy. She had hoped Saad would be careful and respectful, but a small voice inside her warned that things might not go as planned. Hours passed, and messages began to reach her from friends at the market. People whispered about a woman flaunting her wig, showing it off in ways that were bold and, sometimes, careless. Amina's stomach sank. The gossip grew quickly. Friends called her, asking if it was true that her wig had been seen on another woman acting in a strange, attention-seeking way. Some laughed, others sounded concerned, and a few even seemed angry. Amina felt a mix of embarrassment and betrayal. She had trusted Saad, given her a prized possession, and now it seemed that trust had been misused. Saad, on the other hand, was unaware of the damage her actions were causing. She attended a party that evening, the wig drawing attention immediately. People whispered and stared, asking who she was and how she had such beautiful hair. Saad basked in the admiration, showing off with every move. She posed in front of mirrors, laughed loudly, and made sure everyone noticed her. She felt powerful and beautiful. But as the night went on, she began to notice some strange reactions. A few people seemed skeptical of her story, asking her if the wig truly belonged to her. Some raised eyebrows, whispering to each other. Saad brushed it off at first, thinking they were just jealous. But later, she overheard someone say, "That wig is too perfect. I think she borrowed it from someone else." Panic started to creep in. She realized she might have made a mistake. Back at home, Amina received a call from a close friend named Chica, who had seen Saad at the party. "Amina, is that your wig?" Chica asked nervously. "It's on another woman, and she's acting so bold. People are talking." Amina's heart sank even further. She felt a mix of anger, hurt, and disappointment. She had trusted Saad, and now her prized possession was at the center of gossip and speculation. Amina tried to calm herself. She reminded herself that the wig was not ruined yet, but the situation hurt deeply. She felt foolish for thinking someone else would treat her treasure with the care and respect she expected. Her grandmother's words returned vividly, "Not everyone deserves your treasure." Amina had known it was risky, but she had wanted to be kind. Now she understood the full meaning of her grandmother's warning. Meanwhile, Saad began to feel the pressure. The attention that had made her feel confident now felt overwhelming. People were asking questions she could not answer fully. Her excitement began to fade, replaced by worry. What if Amina found out about the way she had flaunted the wig? What if she had ruined her relationship with the girl who had trusted her? At the market the next day, gossip had spread even further. Friends of Amina whispered, and a few customers approached her stall with curious looks. Some were sympathetic, others seemed amused by the situation. Amina felt a deep sense of embarrassment. People were talking about her wig, but not in the way she had hoped. It was no longer admired solely for its beauty, it had become a story of carelessness. Amina thought about Saad and wondered how the woman could be so careless with something so valuable. She tried to remind herself that Saad might not have meant any harm, but the feelings of betrayal were strong. She had shared a piece of herself, her pride, and now she felt that piece had been misused. It was a hard lesson, but one she could not ignore. Saad returned the wig later that evening, holding it awkwardly. She looked nervous, avoiding Amina's eyes. I hope it's okay," Saad said quietly, handing it back. Amina took the wig carefully, inspecting it. Thankfully, it was still in good condition, but the memory of what had happened stung. She felt a mix of relief that it was safe and disappointment that Saad had not respected the trust she had given. Amina adjusted the wig slowly, feeling every strand. It looked perfect, just as it had before, but the joy she usually felt was tempered by the events of the day. She realized that some things, no matter how tempting to share, were too precious to entrust to anyone without careful thought. The wig was more than just hair, it was a symbol of her style, her pride, and her hard work. Giving it to someone else had taught her a lesson she would not forget. She thought about how easily trust could be misused. Even though Saad had returned the wig, the way she had flaunted it publicly had caused gossip and embarrassment. Amina realized that generosity had its limits. Being kind did not mean being careless. Some treasures needed protection above all else. That evening, Amina sat alone in her room, brushing the wig slowly and carefully. The sunlight had faded, but the wig still shone under the soft glow of the lamp. She felt a mix of emotions: pride, sadness, and understanding. Pride that she had a beautiful wig, sadness that her trust had been misused, and understanding that some lessons could only be learned through experience. Amina reflected on the events of the day. She thought about Saad, the party, and the gossip. She understood that kindness was valuable, but so was caution. Some people, even with good intentions, might not handle what you treasure with care. She made a silent promise to herself: she would protect what was hers more carefully in the future. She would be generous, but not reckless. Even as the night went on, the memory of the party and the gossip lingered. Amina realized that her feelings of embarrassment and betrayal were not signs of weakness, they were signs of awareness. She understood the importance of guarding her prized possessions and trusting only those who truly deserved it. She had learned something important about people, about trust, and about herself. The wig sat perfectly on her head as she brushed it. It looked the same as it had before, but Amina's perception had changed. She felt stronger, wiser, and more careful. The events with Saad had been difficult, but they had taught her a lesson she would carry forever. Some things, she realized, were too precious to share lightly, no matter how persuasive someone seemed. Amina smiled softly at her reflection. The wig still glimmered, and she felt proud once again. This time, the pride was deeper, mixed with wisdom. She knew she would never make the same mistake again. Trust had to be earned, and some treasures, like her wig, were worth protecting at all costs. Amina sat by her small window, the soft evening light falling on her face. She held her wig gently in her hands, feeling the smooth strands slip through her fingers. The events with Saad played again in her mind. She had trusted someone, given them her prized possession, and now she understood how quickly trust could be misused. Her feelings were mixed: relief that the wig had been returned, but also a deep lesson in caution and care. She thought about her grandmother's words, which she had heard so many times but now understood in a deeper way: not everyone deserves your treasure. At the time, as a little girl, she had only partly understood the meaning. But now, after what had happened, the words rang clearly in her mind. Treasures, whether big or small, were not just objects. They were pieces of her identity, her pride, and her hard work. Amina reflected on how easily she had almost let kindness cloud her judgment. She wanted to be generous and trusting, but she realized that generosity had its limits. Some things were simply too precious to hand over without thought. She had learned the importance of boundaries, of knowing when to say no, and of protecting what mattered most to her. The lesson was not just about the wig. It was about all the things she valued in her life. Her jewelry, her artwork, her small savings, all of these represented her effort and dedication. She thought about the time she had spent creating jewelry for the market, the care she had taken to maintain her appearance, and the pride she felt when she saw her hard work admired. Protecting these things was not selfish, it was wise. Amina began to think about the people around her. She realized that not everyone could be trusted with her treasures, and that was okay. Some friends were supportive, some were curious, and some might even envy what she had. She needed to be careful about whom she allowed close to her prized possessions, and whom she trusted with personal things. Trust, she understood, had to be earned, not given freely. The next morning, Amina went back to the market, her wig carefully secured. She felt a sense of renewed determination. She was proud of her style, proud of her work, and proud of herself for learning an important lesson. People noticed her as she walked through the crowded stalls, and she smiled at the familiar faces. But this time, her pride was mixed with a quiet strength, an inner wisdom that had not been there before. Amina decided to share her experience in small ways with her friends. When she saw her close friend Chica arranging her own jewelry at her stall, Amina approached her and spoke softly. "You have worked hard on your jewelry, Chica. You should be careful about who you trust with it," she said. Chica nodded, understanding immediately. She had seen the way some people could be careless with what belonged to others. Amina felt a quiet satisfaction in sharing her lesson. Over the next few days, Amina continued to observe the people around her. She noticed how some admired her carefully, asking polite questions about her wig and her jewelry. Others seemed more curious than respectful, trying to touch things or pry for details. Amina was careful now, smiling kindly but keeping her treasures protected. She realized that setting boundaries was not rude, it was necessary. It was a way to show respect for herself and her work. Amina also began thinking about the larger meaning of the lesson. Life, she realized, was full of things that were precious in many ways. Time, energy, effort, and personal pride were treasures too. They, like her wig, needed protection from careless hands. She understood that being cautious did not make her unkind, it made her wise. She had to be selective about whom she allowed into her inner circle, whom she trusted, and whom she allowed to share in her achievements. As she sat quietly one afternoon, brushing her wig carefully, Amina thought about the events of the past week. She had learned more than just a lesson about a wig. She had learned about trust, respect, and the importance of self-worth. She realized that her grandmother had always known this, and that she had finally understood the meaning of the advice. Some things, no matter how tempting it was to share them, were meant to be cherished privately. Amina began to take small steps to protect herself and her treasures. She reorganized her stall at the market, keeping her most valuable items closer to her. She brushed her wig daily, maintaining it meticulously, and made a rule for herself. No one would touch it without her permission, and she would only lend it if she truly trusted someone. The small steps made her feel empowered and in control. She also began advising others, not in a harsh way, but in quiet, friendly conversations. When her friend Tola asked her opinion about sharing a new necklace with a neighbor, Amina gently said, "It's okay to share, but be careful. Make sure the person respects your effort and cares for it as much as you do." Tola nodded, appreciating the advice. Amina felt happy that she could help her friends learn what she had learned the hard way. In the evenings, Amina would sit by the window and reflect on her day. She felt a quiet sense of peace knowing she was taking control of her life and her treasures. She realized that protecting what was valuable did not mean closing herself off to others. It meant being thoughtful, wise, and careful. It meant valuing herself enough to set boundaries and expect respect from those around her. Amina thought about the future and the people she would meet. She knew that some would respect her treasures, some would admire them from a distance, and some might try to take advantage. She was ready for all of it now. Her experiences with Saad had taught her that generosity had limits and that caution was a form of self-respect. She felt stronger, more confident, and more aware of her own worth. Even her approach to work at the market changed. She smiled kindly at everyone who passed by, answered questions politely, and offered guidance when asked. But she kept her most valuable items close, observing carefully before allowing anyone near them. She had learned to balance kindness with caution, and it made her feel proud and wise. Amina also realized that lessons like these were not just about material things. They applied to relationships, opportunities, and personal goals. She began thinking more carefully about whom she trusted, what she shared, and how she spent her time. Every decision became a chance to practice the wisdom she had learned. She felt prepared for life in a way she had never felt before. Days turned into weeks, and Amina continued to grow more confident. She no longer felt nervous about the market or about people's opinions. Her wig was still as beautiful as ever, and her jewelry continued to sell well. But the real change was inside her. She had learned to value herself, her effort, and her treasures. She understood the importance of boundaries and the need to protect what was precious. Even when she saw Saad again, Amina felt calm. There was no anger, no bitterness, only understanding. She had learned her lesson, and she knew that some things were not meant to be shared lightly. Trust had to be earned, respect had to be given, and treasures had to be protected. Amina walked with a quiet confidence, proud of her wisdom, and ready to face the world with her head held high. Amina walked into the large hall, her wig perfectly in place, shining under the bright lights. She had spent hours preparing, making sure every strand was smooth and every detail perfect. She had learned to care for her wig carefully, not just because it was beautiful, but because it represented her effort, her pride, and her self-respect. As she moved through the crowd, people turned to admire her. Some whispered quietly, impressed by her elegance. Others smiled openly, clearly drawn to the way she carried herself. For a moment, Amina remembered the events with Saad, the party, the gossip, and the embarrassment she had felt. She felt a small shiver, thinking about how easily trust could be misused. But now, standing in the center of attention, she realized how far she had come. She had learned that trust must be earned, not given freely. She had learned to protect her treasures and to set boundaries. And now, she was shining, not just because of her wig, but because of the wisdom she carried inside her. The event was lively, with music, laughter, and people moving in all directions. Vendors and performers filled the space with energy, and Amina felt herself become part of that energy. She had always enjoyed being in social events, but this time it was different. She carried herself with quiet confidence, a strength that came from knowing she was in control of her own treasures and her own choices. Friends approached her throughout the evening, complimenting her hair, her style, and her confidence. "Your wig looks amazing, Amina," said Tola, a friend from the market. "You always shine." Amina smiled warmly, remembering how she had once struggled with trust and boundaries. Now, her pride was quiet but powerful. She knew that her beauty, her talent, and her treasures were hers to protect, and that understanding gave her strength. Even strangers noticed her poise. People asked her questions about her style, how she maintained her wig, and how she seemed so confident. Amina answered politely but carefully, never revealing more than she wished to. She had learned the importance of discretion, of knowing when to share and when to keep things to herself. Her wig was beautiful, but it was also a symbol of the lessons she had learned: trust, patience, and self-respect. Later, Amina moved to a small stage to speak briefly about her jewelry and the art of self-care. She shared a few tips on how to maintain confidence and respect personal treasures. People listened carefully, some nodding in agreement, others jotting down notes. She did not speak about the events with Saad, but the wisdom she shared came from that experience. She had learned that kindness was important, but so was caution. That lesson resonated with everyone around her. After the speech, several young women approached her, asking for advice about fashion, self-care, and confidence. Amina smiled gently, offering guidance. "Value yourself and what you have worked for," she said. "Some things are too precious to share lightly. Learn to protect your efforts, and people will respect you more for it." Her words were simple, but they carried power. The women nodded, absorbing her advice. Some even confided small stories of trust and betrayal they had experienced themselves, and Amina listened patiently, offering encouragement. Throughout the evening, Amina noticed the admiration in people's eyes. It was not just for her beauty or her wig, but for the confidence and wisdom she carried. She realized that protecting her worth had not made her selfish, it had made her strong and inspiring. People wanted to be around her not because of her possessions, but because of the respect and dignity she showed. That understanding filled her with quiet pride. As the night continued, Amina mingled with friends, sharing laughter and stories. She felt connected to the people around her in a way she had never felt before. Her experiences had taught her empathy and understanding. She could recognize those who valued her for who she was, not just what she had. And she could see those who were careless or curious in the wrong ways. Her inner strength allowed her to navigate the crowd easily, knowing exactly how to respond to each situation. The wig remained flawless, a reflection of her dedication and care. But it was more than just a beautiful accessory, it was a symbol of everything she had learned. She had experienced temptation, seen the consequences of misplaced trust, and discovered the importance of setting boundaries. Now, every glance she received was a reminder of her growth and empowerment. During a quiet moment, Amina looked around at the hall filled with people. She thought about the market, Saad, and the lessons that had come from that small but powerful event. She realized that her journey had taught her more than just how to protect a wig, it had taught her about life, about respect, about herself. She understood that empowerment came not from showing off possessions, but from knowing her worth and standing firm in her values. Amina also thought about her friends at the market and the people she had advised over the past weeks. She had become more than just a seller of jewelry, she had become a source of guidance and inspiration. People saw her strength, and they learned from it. She realized that empowering herself also meant empowering others, showing them that careful choices and self-respect were important. The evening wore on, and the event reached its lively peak. Music played, laughter filled the room, and Amina moved gracefully through the crowd. She felt alive, confident, and calm. She had faced temptation, experienced consequences, and learned important lessons. And now, she was shining not just for her beauty, but for the wisdom and strength she carried inside her. Even when someone asked if she would ever lend her wig again, Amina smiled gently. "It's very special to me," she said quietly. "I only share it with people I truly trust." The person nodded, understanding the importance of her words. Amina felt no guilt, no hesitation, only quiet confidence. She had learned that protecting her worth was not selfish. It was necessary, and it inspired respect. As the night came to an end, Amina returned home, her wig still perfect, her heart full of pride and peace. She reflected on her journey, from the market to the event, from temptation to wisdom. She had learned that appearances were not everything. The real strength came from knowing her value and protecting it wisely. She had gained more than admiration. She had gained self-respect and empowerment. In the following days, Amina continued to shine at every event she attended. Her wig remained intact, beautiful, and well cared for. But the real attention she received came from the way she carried herself, the way she respected herself, and the way she inspired others. People admired her not only for her style but for her wisdom, patience, and quiet strength. Amina also continued to guide friends and young women who sought advice. She shared her experiences and the lessons she had learned. She spoke simply but wisely, the importance of trust, boundaries, and protecting what is precious. Her words encouraged others to value themselves, to understand their worth, and to make careful choices. Her influence grew quietly but powerfully. Even months later, Amina remembered the events with Saad. She smiled softly, thinking about how those moments had shaped her. She had learned to navigate temptation, to face consequences, and to emerge stronger and wiser. She realized that every experience, even the difficult ones, could become a lesson if approached with thought and reflection. Her wig continued to shine, just as it had in the market, at the party, and at the events. But the real shine came from Amina herself, from her understanding, her confidence, and her wisdom. People looked at her and admired not just her appearance, but the way she carried herself, the strength in her heart, and the clarity in her mind. Amina had learned that empowerment was not about taking risks carelessly or showing off treasures to impress others. It was about understanding their value, protecting them, and standing firm in one's principles. Trust, she had learned, was earned, not given freely. And by protecting her worth, she inspired everyone around her to do the same. She reflected quietly one evening, brushing her wig carefully and smiling. She had grown, learned, and empowered herself. She had become someone who could navigate life with grace and wisdom, someone who understood the balance between generosity and caution, someone who inspired others to value themselves. Amina realized that life was full of lessons, and she had learned one of the most important: protect what is precious, know your worth, and trust wisely. These were lessons that would guide her forever, and they had made her shine brighter than any wig ever could. The end.